So Harold?
All board members present except for Mr. Torres. Dr. Randall, you ready to work this agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. The first item on the agenda is consider approval of the 2016-17 District Campus Improvement Plans. All the board members received a flash drive that included the plans. If you decided to print it out, you probably needed a box of paper to get it done. But Brian will share a couple of comments and then answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Honored members of the board, the improvement plan process always starts in the spring of the year and it ends usually in September. This year we had a 1-month postponement so that we could receive test scores. Our campuses go through a process with their site-based committees to look at their data, to do a needs assessment, to review the comments from the survey that we do, the My Voice survey, and they submit these plans every year for your review and approval to keep improving student performance in LCISD.
Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
On this Your Voice survey, how many parents participated, or do you have numbers?
I don't have those numbers. I think Mr. Rockwood, do you have that available?
Just give me one moment, I can check.
Okay. I have another question.
Go right ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
In my pile of papers, I happened to find the campus improvement plan. This particular one is for Bowie Elementary from last year.
Yes, ma'am.
How do we follow up to see what their goals were and how did they end up?
In that case, what we do is that we give the data to the campus, we review it with them, and then we take a look at what are the accountability targets they're required to meet for this year. And where they have not met those accountability targets, they're required to address that in this year's plan.
So do we just go online and are we able to see that report?
Yes, all of the reports for all the campuses are posted at lcisd.org, and the web page is the Research, Assessment, and Accountability site. It has all of the state reports that were given.
So basically, when they did this plan, the answers as to, or their report will be
Yes.
on there? Okay.
Yes.
3,607.
Okay. 3,607.
Parents, how about staff
1,838.
and students?
10,319.
Are the students asked to do that in their classes, or is this on their own? Are they directed in the classrooms to get online and, or go to the survey?
So about a month before we have our campus climate surveys, parents are made aware just from communications from the campuses that we're going to have this survey, and then each individual campus schedules it differently how they want to implement the survey, but typically they have a time over a 3-week window between Thanksgiving break and winter break where they have computer lab time and the folks just go in there and schedule the students to come in with their student IDs ready, and it usually takes the students about 15 to 20 minutes to complete the survey.
And are the staff allowed time to do that during their day?
Well, staff members receive a unique email that comes to them, and they also have, over 3 weeks to do that. And typically, staff members will do that on their own time. Every employee gets that, so it's up to them when they want to get that done in a 3-week period.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next item on the agenda is approval of out-of-country travel for George Ranch High School and Terry High School. This is a trip to Foshan that George Ranch has. We have an MOU with Foshan, and that George Ranch had been exchanging both students and staff. This year, Terry High School will have some students participating in that trip to Foshan. Next item is consider ratification of quarterly investment reports. Consider approval of budget amendment request. There are a number of budget amendments because we're closing out.
Yeah, this just looks
The
like
year.
swapping accounts and carrying forward, pretty much it.
Yes. A business that was in transition at year end.
Yes. You're about to get me trained. Ms. Minsky.
Well, I'm not trained. Still trying to figure this out. On page 31 and 32. I think the one that I was trying to figure out the most was the sixth budget change on page 32. Donations to the district by outside parties, but
Right.
were not spent.
Right. Depending on when the donations were received during the year, some of the monies have been deposited in our accounts, but they haven't been spent for the items that were designated for various reasons. Some, for instance, one that I can remember in particular, one of the campuses had funds donated for a shade structure, and it wasn't complete. But there are requisitions outstanding, so we're carrying those forward in one place, and in another where they haven't generated requisitions, but the funds are still there. That's the one we're carrying those funds forward, so they still have access to them. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that part does, but
Okay.
can you help me a little bit on classroom instruction? What would they be, money-wise? What would the purpose be for classroom instruction? What would cover that?
So during the year, when we read the donations
Uh-huh.
that come before the board, they're for various things. Books, classroom supplies, lots of different things.
I think what was in my mind was if it was for classroom instructions, how could we end up with that kind of money at the end of the year? I mean, I hear teachers always saying, we don't have enough money, we can't get this, or we can't get this supply, or we can't get this program, and it's always the money, and I'm looking at $145,000.
Right, and they have access to those funds. They're in their accounts, but they haven't spent it by August 31st. So we roll it forward so that they still have access to it.
And in some instances, those donations may have come in June.
In August
They
and
could have come in
July.
July. They could have come in at the 1st of August. They just weren't spent before close of books.
Right.
Okay.
So actually, what it does is it goes to fund balance, and then we carry it forward this way so that they can spend it.
The other one was the startup, the third budget change. It says the campuses received allocations, the portable buildings. Well, this one too. I was really trying to figure out the classroom instructions for all of these budget changes. And like it says, there's 12 new portable buildings. And there was a budget for construction supplies and materials. And yet, there was $125,000 left for classroom instruction. I may be going just one track.
Again, all of these are very similar. With respect to the portable buildings, we brought an amendment to the board, I want to say spring or maybe May, in that time frame. And that budget amendment included the cost of the buildings, the construction, the technology equipment, the classroom supplies and all that stuff, furniture. And then the work begins. And then at year end, they weren't finished buying or constructing or whatever. So those funds are still in the accounts. So we roll it forward so that we can pay the pending bills when they come in.
The pending bills.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll just repeat, when I'm hearing teachers telling me,
Mhm.
you know, we just can't get things, and I'm seeing this money here, and I'm going, why are they not getting it?
I know, and it's in their accounts. They have access to it.
Okay. think I have an answer then. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
The next item is consider ratification of financial and investment reports. The next item is consider approval of purchase of mural art design services.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know of an instance where at one of the schools, the teachers wanted, like, to put up the Mustang design in there. It was either the hallway or the classroom, and they had to do it themselves on their own time.
No, we
Am I
actually,
misunderstanding that?
you may have been, we actually prefer for an outside contractor to do those services, and that's what this procurement is about, is to hire an outside contractor to come in and paint and apply vinyl coverings, or like the decals that you saw at Fulsher that were applied in the hallways and things. That's what this procurement is for, because we're getting to a point where we're reaching that commodity threshold of 50,000 across the district. So we want to put a bid in place so that all of our procurements are legal and they're refined down to the procurement law.
Is there specific places in the school where you allow the murals to be painted, or is it in one section if they would like something?
It's
they go
my
and request
understanding
it?
it's at the discretion of the principal.
Of the
I'm
principal?
not really sure.
Okay.
We'd like for them to inform us so that Kevin can, and his staff, because there may be some issues with a particular wall that a teacher wouldn't even have any idea about. And in most cases, though, depending on what it is that they're wanting to do, we try to work with them on it.
This is not like putting a bumper sticker on either.
No.
This is-
No, it's
It's a big job.
These are quite elaborate.
It's there for a long time.
And when Lamar Junior High did all that painting in their room, that was different.
Yes, that's different. All right, Dr. Randall.
The next item is consider approval of agreement with MSB Consulting Group, School Health and Related Services, SHARS program. If the board will recall, our SHARS program is where we actually, and I'll let staff go ahead and, because I'll get going and.
Okay, so SHARS is a Medicaid billing and claiming program where we provide services on a daily basis to Medicaid-eligible students, and then we can claim reimbursements through the Medicaid program for it. Then there's also a companion program called the Medicaid Administrative Claiming, also MAC, and that's outreach to identify students. So there's two different programs, and this consulting group will help us to identify and process claims.
Ms. Ludwig, is this, when you say that we provide services for these kids, is it through the services that are provided locally with that
Special
health plan
ed,
that we have?
special ed
Oh,
services.
special ed. This isn't the one that we have that's available to the kids here in Rosenberg?
No,
I don't believe so. This is actually on the
different.
campuses.
This is actually the federal government reimbursing us for the contact that we have, like life skill kids.
Okay.
We have the staff that perform particular,
And transportation as well is eligible. In some instances, you know.
Social work services are included in this as well,
I
right?
believe so. I don't really deal with this. It's
Depends
more
on
in
the
the special
contact
ed
with the,
area,
the
so
special ed
Tiffany
kid.
deals, Tiffany Mathis deals with it more closely than I do.
Thank you.
Ms. Kaminsky, you have another question? You're just about to bust it.
I just got to wash my face. We had a very enlightening meeting with Ms. Mathis, and I appreciated her taking that time. Y'all changed different companies this year.
Yes. We have been with HISD for the past few years, and so we're moving to MSB.
Are you anticipating a larger revenue?
Yes.
from doing this?
We're really expecting several things based on the references that we spoke with. Their procedures are such that the claims that are filed and the revenues that are generated are higher with this firm. They provide more extensive training for our staff. Their software is user-friendly. We've actually had a 30-day trial with them at no charge where they're looking at a prior year settlement, and it's going to almost double.
Double?
What that settlement was going to be, yeah.
Thank you.
Were we on a percentage basis with our previous contract also?
As far as what percentage of the revenue
You
they
said, well, I know
get.
this was a percentage. Was HIC contract a percentage also?
I believe HISD, based on the time we've been with them, we were at 4.5% of the total that they recoup, and this one's at 6%.
But we expect to get better service from this.
Yes, definitely.
They actually will relieve some of our staff
Yes.
with some of the responsibilities that our staff has, which is significant.
Very good, thank you.
The next item is consider approval of interlocal membership to the Central Texas Purchasing Alliance.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When I was looking at the different districts, they're smaller districts, or are they equal to us?
Round Rock and Austin ISD and Spring Branch, those, and, those are actually, I think, a little bit larger.
A little bit larger?
Most of the school districts that are engaged with this are in the Central Texas area, so it's a combination of larger districts and smaller districts, and we're all trying to put our purchasing power together in order to receive better pricing when we do procurements.
Are there some local areas, districts that somewhat closer to us?
Spring Branch.
Spring Branch?
Mhm.
That's-
And they're, I'm trying to remember, Clear Creek.
Clear Creek.
And there's a couple of others that will be coming on board probably in January from this area.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question for you. On
Yes.
page 57, under the officers and directors, it says each member organization shall appoint a single representative as a voting member. Who do we appoint to that? Page 57, under officers and directors, item 5.
I'll need to find out. Currently, all of the officers and directors are my peers, purchasing folks that are representing each of the
Okay,
districts.
so that's the decision to be made.
I'll be sitting on my hands so that I don't get nominated to another committee, but should we be asked, it will most likely be someone from the purchasing office.
All right, just curious, another commitment from the district of your time, so.
Yes,
All right,
yes.
thank you.
The next item on the agenda is consider approval of donations to the district. Consider approval of resolutions proclaiming Parent Involvement Week. Consider approval of professional topographic surveying services for Carter Elementary School. Consider approval of Texas Accessibility Standards Review and Inspection for Carter Elementary School. Consider approval of professional plating services for Carter Elementary School. Consider approval of HVAC test and balance for Lindsay Elementary School. Consider approval of geotechnical study for Carter Elementary School. Consider approval of the district-wide access control system service order for KCI Technology. Consider approval of CenterPoint Energy gas development fees for Lindsay Elementary School. Consider approval of CenterPoint Energy blanket easement for Lindsay Elementary School. Consider approval of the Foster High School water plant upgrade services order for KCI Technologies. Consider approval of professional I can't pronounce that word to save my life.
We'll have that topographic.
Topographic
There we go.
surveying services for Foster High School water plant upgrade. Consider approval of fiber data connection for Lindsay Elementary School. Consider approval of Veneer Rice and Gardner Consultants Contract Amendment Number 2. Consider approval of procurement method and project authorization for district-wide site lighting.
I have a question.
Ms. Minsky.
It's going to be real quick. When you're doing this for the lighting, that's a security thing, correct?
It's for the parking lot lights.
Security. Do they have cameras at the same location?
Generally, there's not cameras on the parking lot lights, there's cameras on the exterior of the buildings.
But not in the parking area?
They do
It
show the
covers-
parking area.
It does? Okay. Have you ever been approached, this is something new, and I'm not going to know the company because I left everything at the house, but I have heard that there's some lighting fixtures now that actually have the cameras on the same pole with them. Have you heard of that before? Been approached by anybody?
I haven't been approached by anybody on that.
But have you heard about them?
I've seen some locations that have that.
What do you think about them? They're costly?
It's hard to tell after looking at it and telling what they have, but you'd have to run cable to it and things like that. So it could get costly. That's why we have them on the sides of the buildings, looking out underneath the parking lot lights.
Okay. All right.
And most of those cameras that are on the building cover the entire parking
Right.
lot.
We have
And in fact, they extend beyond the parking lot in
Correct.
most cases.
Correct. We have
And they're
360
brand new.
cameras, and I think Mr. Jacobson can speak a lot more about the cameras and the milestone systems that we have. But they've really come a long way with the type of cameras that we have.
Was it at the new natatorium, I think a few months ago, that I had said some parents were concerned about there not being enough lighting there at night? It was a huge...
I believe there was some areas at Trailer Stadium you mentioned, it was at one of the football games, I believe.
That's right.
And I think we had some lights that were out and were addressed.
So this will be
Yes.
addressed? Okay. Thank you.
This also is to help reduce operation and maintenance costs as well. You don't have to
Yes,
change
sir,
bulbs.
and it'll also reduce some energy costs.
Energy
Yes,
costs.
sir.
All right, thanks.
Next item is consider approval of hazardous material surveying services for various projects. Consider approval of amendment number 1, the HVAC full coverage maintenance and service agreement. Consider approval of Lamar CISD 2017 bond timeline consideration.
Ms. Minsky?
Are we going to use the same method of trying to contact various citizens to come to this, to volunteer to be on this planning?
Yes,
committee?
ma'am, we're going to use the same process that we used in 2014.
Okay. And that's going to start in December?
So what we'll do is we'll provide each trustee with a nomination form, and each trustee will choose 3 representatives from their single-member district to be placed on the committee, and those individuals will then be on the committee. And then we'll be publicizing to the community, the bond committee, letting them know they can fill out forms for interest. We'll compile all that, and then we'll select 4 members from each single-member district to fill out the committee. There'll also be 10 students and 8 campus administrators that complete the full committee. And then we'll bring all the names with the names that you all provided back to the board after the winter break for y'all to approve.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure that, so that when we are considering individuals, they meet every Monday from April through June. Is that correct?
Yes, I mean, this is the first, we don't have the actual date set, but it'll be Mondays. And so, like, we've already got the zoning date set, which we'll talk about later. But for this, yes, meetings will be on Monday, and we'll come through. And whenever we start the publicizing of this to the community, we can include information about the date so they know if they're available or not. But we're pretty much lining out all Mondays all the way through that time frame,
Okay.
including time for tours, et cetera, whatever will be necessary.
Okay, thank you.
And do the principals put it on their websites too, or do you just go?
Yeah, typically, and we'll even, whenever we have something like zoning or a bond election, we'll create campus banners as well that will go onto each campus page, and parents can just click that and go straight to
Okay.
the information
So it makes
page.
it very simple for you.
Yes,
to
ma'am.
do. Okay.
Have a question? Thank you.
Next item is discussion and action on changes to board operating procedures.
I've got some questions.
All right.
Very first one, I think it was on page 2. And I know this sounds silly, but after trying to go through everything time-wise on our part, it just seems like it's getting shorter and shorter to read everything. Where it's talking about when we get our information, we get it on a Friday afternoon. It says it says a week before our board meetings. Is there any way we can request that to extend that out to an extra 2 days? Or is that up? We get it on a Friday afternoon, and then we have our meeting on Tuesday and Thursday. I'm just bringing this up for discussion. Is anybody having problems trying to go through, have the time to go through all of this?
Well, I'll speak from the standpoint of just putting the board book together. Typically, staff is working on in preparation for board agenda items. Those agenda items come in on a Wednesday evening, and then on Thursday, we spend the time trying to vet those items that would be on the board agenda, and then the board book is actually put together on Friday mornings. And if you were to extend that time any, you would actually be backing it up earlier in the week. And oftentimes, there are some of these agenda items that are just time sensitive. That's just when they are done. And so we may end up having to do some amendments to the agenda if we back it up any further. That's just a statement from the staff's perspective.
As you probably well know, between Thursday when Dr. Brown and I talk and by Friday afternoon, we periodically get an update if something's added in there. So that's just the crunch word.
Okay, I'll just burn the midnight oil. Just kidding. I'm joking.
I bet you didn't read all the campus improvement plans either.
Okay, not all the campus, but I did the district. I have several questions.
Go right ahead.
Is there anybody else that has questions? Because maybe y'all are thinking, no?
This is called a workshop. Go ahead.
Okay. On page 3, well, I'm glad we're going to the 2 board. First of all, on that page 2, A3. I agree with that totally. And I do want to thank you too, for you and Kay, for working on this. I know, and
Dr. Harold.
Dr. Harold. On page 3, under 2, it says member conduct during board meetings. 4 members present constitutes a quorum. So under that section, we are talking about the board member conduct, or are we talking about the audience conduct?
I'm not with you. Where are you?
Yeah, where are you?
Page?
On page 3,
Page 3.
at the very top, member conduct.
Okay.
Person address the board.
And I know it's been this way, but when I was reading it, I was going, wait a minute, are we talking about our conduct as a board? Or are we talking about the audience.
The heading up there is a little bit misleading based on what follows it. It talks about both.
That's what I'm questioning. I don't see that we have an actual board, member conduct application here addressing our conduct.
Well, it does. If down, for instance, in public hearings, the board will not answer questions, enter into dialogue. All discussion shall be directed solely to business. Further on down, so they'll talk about things the board needs to be doing during these meetings.
Okay.
So, yes, it is intermixed with some audience conduct in there as well, but a lot of that still does have things that the board should be doing during these meetings.
That's how we should act during the audience of the patrons or during that kind of what I take it to.
Well, I had been reading some other districts,
Mhm.
and it was more of, they do separate them. Audience conduct, what's acceptable, and what is board member conduct, in very precise language. So I think I would have, this hasn't changed over the years, that we maybe needed to readdress this a little bit, refine it. I think under audience conduct,
I think in our policy manual, there's a section on that. It's not in the board.
it's not in the board, or we could even say refer to
Well,
policy.
this basically refers back to the policy, and that's in the hierarchy, that's the ranking document.
Mhm.
This is just some extracts from that. It doesn't cover everything that's in there, but
So you don't think we would just need to refer to?
I don't think so, because if we
That-
start
that could be
referring
said about, I mean-
too much back in there, we're going to have a document, the board operating procedure is almost as large as the policy. And so we try to keep this as simple as possible, address the main issues that we see.
As it happens? Okay. Then on the bottom, on page 3, the board president has the right, says has the right to recognize a board member prior to giving their comments.
Mhm.
And then on number 5, it says board members will raise their hand and be recognized by their presiding officer. When you're talking about has the right to recognize, and then you're saying board members will raise their hands, that confused me.
That, in my opinion, if that's necessary, the president can exercise that authority and responsibility, as long as things, as the folks on the board all manage themselves. We really don't have to do that. I'd rather not get that formal if everything is kept going smoothly. Now, if we get out of order, then the president would have the right to say, wait a minute, y'all are getting ahead of me, let's go to raising hands so you can be recognized.
So that's just giving you some leeway.
Yes, and I just as soon keep it a little less formal if in fact we can operate that way.
Well, and I just wanted to, interject too. I thought that when we were talking about this, it was whoever, because we're looking for the future. So whoever is sitting in that seat, they can, in some of our meetings we've had, even at TASB, how formal do we want to make it, how a little
Yes.
bit more lax? And if it gets to the point, we just need to make sure we have these in there so that we can use them if needed. And I think that's what we discussed.
Then on page 6, I think I've asked this before at TASB, and I never really got an answer. We're required to have on G, 6, at the very top, G. Board president will be reporting the training hours attained by each board member. At the present time, we have a minimum of 5 hours.
Correct.
That's a minimum.
Correct.
Is there any stipulation where we can raise it to 8 hours, or is the 5 something that all the districts are mandated to do and no more?
I don't
Can we
know whether
require?
any specific
Didn't we
part-
ask that question of Kay Douglas when she was here? I think that was one of the questions we talked about. And we said something about more hours.
And I think her response was that
What do you mean?
we couldn't force anyone to
we-
take any out.
Yeah, there's no,
Yes.
Therefore.
There's nothing but just the minimum.
as with a lot of things in the
That was
policy, there's not any repercussion, I mean, for not attaining, it's just it's a symbolic minimum, I mean,
Okay.
But yeah, it's a standard you'd like to meet, but there's absolutely no penalty for not making that. So you can pick any number you want to, and there's no one.
the reality is board
No
members that want to get their
But I mean,
education are going
at
to get
some
it.
point, TEA, if they were seeing that nobody on a board was doing anything, they could come in. Am I correct on that?
They come well, and when we're supposed to do our own audit as well, to find out how we're performing, that could be an issue that could come up.
With the TEA. Okay.
But I mean, yes, that is not very many. I mean, one of our workshops, I mean, our team building is 4 hours. If you went to one other conference, you get 15, 10 to 15. So but yeah.
To me, this is also an indication to the community out there of the board's engagement and what we're up to. If we choose to have 5 hours, you can judge what we're doing. If we choose to have 35 hours, you folks out there can judge how we're doing. So
The minimum doesn't mean anything, really.
Okay. Now, this is just, I have two more and then I'm through it,
okay.
hopefully. In May, we had a little confusion when we elected the officers as to who took what. The president was still president, but when we actually nominated for the coming year, it was a confusion as to who would oversee that May meeting. Do we need to clarify things like that in this Board of Operations?
I'm not sure we need to do that. I think it was just, at the time, it was convenient because actually the president is setting that agenda for that meeting, and you go through the workshop, so it seemed logical to execute the agenda that you had put
Finish it out.
together, and then do the election at the end, rather than taking a brand-new officer and dropping them in and expecting to run the meeting. So to me, it was just a simple protocol.
So not necessary to put it in?
Well,
think
and it's
so.
when we, like this year, there's going to be an election, and if they're, after the election, we usually have a separate meeting, or and that's when we elect officers, so it would not be so it would not be the same every year.
Right.
It's through circumstances.
Right.
Correct.
That's correct.
I think maybe in the future, when we have something like that, we just need to spell out, this is how we're going to do things today, so everybody's on the same page, because we were a little bit confused. Okay.
And then the very last on page 7, reviewing the standard board operating procedures. Just from my experience, I think we should at least put some kind of a timeline every 2 years or every 3 years just to revisit and not leave it to the majority of the school board. We waited for several years to go over this, and it's just saying at the request of the majority of the board. And I would like the board to consider putting in there possibly every 2 years. It doesn't take very long just to go over it very quickly. And
Why don't you bring that as an amendment to our motion on Thursday evening?
that's why I'm here.
Since we'll be acting on it at that time, you can propose to amend it by adding that.
Just adding, okay,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
The next item is consider approval of new appraisers for teaching staff 2016-17 school year.
Before we go into the discussion items, I'd like to give this audience to patrons on the action on these items.
Sure.
Since these will be action items, and these others are just for discussion for items of information for the board members, on these action items that we just went through, if there are any audience to patrons participation tonight, anybody
I
want to
was
comment?
not given any cards. I don't believe anybody turned any cards in.
Fine, we'll proceed with the information items. Thank you, Dr. Anna.
State accountability, ratings and distinction designations.
We're proud to, this year, have all of our campuses have achieved the MET standard rating, which is currently the highest rating in the accountability system. Additionally, we have 3 campuses that received all of the available distinction designations, and those are Frost Elementary, Jane Long Elementary, and Taylor Ray Elementary. From last year to this year, we increased our distinction designations from 37 to 75, so we saw that a little bit more than double. The distinction designations indicate top flight performance in areas such as reading, ELA, math, science, social studies, student progress, closing performance gap, and post-secondary readiness. And the 3 campuses that earned all of the designations are an elite group of 400, which represents approximately 5% of Texas schools. And then the ones that received all but one of the distinction designations are in the top 10% of Texas schools.
Fantastic.
And those schools that didn't receive any stars?
Those schools that didn't receive any stars either came close to ranking in certain areas or didn't rank because they're working on improvements in their own campus plans.
Could you explain exactly, they're compared, each school is in a group of other schools in the
Yes.
state? So some of our schools would not even be compared
To each other.
to each other. Okay, would you explain how that works?
Each school is ranked with 40 other schools that, based on enrollment size, mobility rate, and the percentage of English language learner students. And they're ranked in the performance areas based on that cohort of 40. And that cohort of 40 can come from anywhere in the state where it matches those like statistics.
Question, is there something in the way that they're ranked that would prevent some of these schools from, so for example, the closing gap, would that prevent a school that's already doing well from receiving this because they don't have a lot to?
What really, there's not a prevention, it's just that it's where they are in that list of 40 cohort schools. So if you're not in the, and let me clarify something. These are schools that ranked in the top 10 of those 40. So if the schools didn't rank in the top 10 of those 40, they might be number 11. And that was the cutoff to receive the distinction designation.
So we have 10 schools that didn't receive any stars, so I'm going to assume that their plan is in the campus improvement plan.
Within the campus improvement plans, there are targets to increase performance with the eventuality that they would receive distinction designations if they rank high enough in their cohort of 40.
And they could have made progress, but just did not get a distinction.
Yes.
Well, and I guess the reason I'm asking what I was asking is because there were several schools last year that did really well, and so there wouldn't be as much progress to be made. So would that work against them in receiving a star?
Not really. What it is it's based on the individual student performance. And so it's the individual percentage of students that made progress on the tests. That's that particular student progress indicator.
So it's not the whole school?
It's not the whole school, it's the individual, it's the amount of kids on that
So you could have
campus.
1 or 2 kids that could knock you down from the 10% down to
Exactly.
11%. Even one child
Could make a difference.
could make a difference. That's what's so hard. It's out.
Cubenac has always done really well, and I see that they only have 2 stars. Do we have any idea, is that just because of the amount of students that are there? Is that working against them as far as student population? Are they having to compare to larger schools?
First of all, they're grouped with larger schools, But second, it's their position versus those other 40 schools. And that list of 40 schools changes every year. So we might see where they only got 2 stars this year, but next year when they re-rank the list and they increase performance, which we want for every year for every child, we might see that they end up with 4 or 5 stars.
But currently, they are being ranked against schools that are much larger, correct?
Right.
Unlike our other campuses.
Right, because the enrollment for
Sure.
for that particular group of campuses is much larger than, let's say, the enrollment for Frost.
Sure. So there are some factors that would weigh against certain schools based on just the special circumstances for that school.
Right.
I'm looking at this list again.
Yes, ma'am.
And you showed me a list 2 months ago, I guess, right?
Yes.
And so, the schools that are on here are the same schools that were on here 4 years ago. And the answer here is that we've changed administration. And the answer is in the campus improvement plan. So the campus improvement plan for the entire district is in here, because it's too big. It'll take a whole box, right? Paper for me to print
That's
it.
correct.
But I'm still concerned that, I guess I want to see the campus improvement plans for these 10 schools that didn't receive any stars. And I want to see what the changes are for the last 4 years up until now.
Okay.
For the 10, Terry, George, Westendorf, Bowie, Huggins, Hutchinson, Pink, Smith, Thomas, and Travis. I just want to be sure that we're not doing these campus improvement plans, because that's a pretty large document, and that they are not being implemented or utilized, or that nothing's being changed. Because this is not good.
I will say this. The campuses and their site-based committees are the ones that drive that, and that is both per state law and board policy. We can do a review, and we've seen leadership changes at many of these campuses. But when we look at that, we have to realize all of the mitigating factors. Now, I can have Ms. Vogt and Ms. Lane speak more to, and Ms. Hack speak more to the managerial side of that. But what I look at is just the compliance side.
And one of the things that may be appropriate, we can certainly do that, and it may be more appropriate to look at growth, because some of those campuses that you mentioned, we did see growth. And that you're able to determine that by actually looking at, we have the ability to look
Yes.
at all of that type of data.
Yes.
And as long as we're at least beginning to see some movement on the part of those campuses, then we know that we've got to take and continue providing the support for those campuses. But that's certainly, the board has both this year and last year's campus improvement plans, but we can certainly drill down deeper. That is not a problem at all. I just don't want I don't want to give the impression that some of these campuses that have really been working hard, and they did make some progress. I don't want that lost in the fact that they didn't get distinctions this year.
I know we're not supposed to comment, but I
Right.
will on this. I see Huggins did not get any stars, and for my behalf, that's where my girls attend, that's where my kids have gone, and I have no concerns there. I know that it's a great school, the teachers are teaching, the kids are learning, and so just because they don't get stars doesn't mean that there's not a lot of growth and a lot of improvement on those campuses, and I think that hopefully that.
Some of these schools have been on the list for the last 4 years since I've been on the board, and that's a concern for me. So maybe Huggins, this is the first time they've been on the list.
I don't know if it's the first time or not,
But it's the concern for me that the last 4 years, many of these schools have been on the low-performing list, and they're still there.
I have to correct you, ma'am. Technically, in Lamar CISD, we do not have any low-performing campuses per the state accountability rules.
Well, they don't have any stars, however
Okay.
you want to look at it.
And the distinction designations.
That's how I see it.
The distinction designations are above and beyond the expectations of the general accountability system. I understand your point, but I just need to make that point of clarity. Okay?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is equal opportunity schools, and I think before, did we get the video? I know a couple of folks saw it, but those that saw it, we're going to make sure that you saw it all. We're going to let you see it again. So.
If you've already seen it, we'll share a little bit about this. It isn't really just about equal opportunity schools, which we've shared with the board before. This past fall, we had a special invitation out of Washington, D.C. Dr. Randall, or our school district, was one of 40 districts invited to Washington, and the cabinet secretary was president for education. And this particular, I'm not clicking. Do you want to click for me? Thank you. We were invited because our district was one of the standout districts in the country for increasing populations of children of color and economically disadvantaged children in advanced placement classes. It's a national effort. The Secretary John King at the U.S. Department of Education made this statement about it. I won't read it to you this evening, obviously. We were invited. It's the first national recognition of this type that has been held. It was a round table, and the purpose of it was for these 40 superintendents to share some of the strategies and ideas and approaches to make sure that all children had equal access to advanced courses. The conference was sponsored by the Rakes Foundation, Google, Tableau Foundation, Jack Kent Cooke Foundation, College Board, IB, My Brother's Keeper, and the Harvard University Research Department. Who was invited? 40 superintendents throughout the country, also foundation leaders, business leaders throughout the country, and of course the cabinet secretary from the Department of Ed. And we were invited for being one of those successful school districts. I just had to put that up there. It wasn't because we just paid for a flight. It was very exciting. The invitation included all expenses, and it was really very flattering to have been invited. Probably one of the best parts is 6 superintendents were selected, this one is ours, to present to leaders from around the country. Dr. Randall was on a panel of 3. He hates this photo. I just had to include it in this. And then, of course, Cabinet Secretary from My Brother's Keeper also attended, and they took a group photo of the panelists there. I think showing this without sharing, for those of you who haven't seen it, some of the students' reactions as they participated in AP classes for the first time this year. We increased our enrollment by 220-something students, and I religiously looked at progress reports and the 6 weeks reports following their progress to see how they were faring, if they were struggling, or what was going on. And I'm pleased to say that they're all doing absolutely wonderful. We made a special project. Chad and I got together, and we placed 200 laptops in with Kajits for internet service at home. Facebook's blocked and other sites. But they have access to all of the tools, and then Mandy Bryan in Chad's department works with the students just to make sure they have all the tools and access to research online that other students do. So Chad, would you mind sharing our video?
We have a really, really diverse student population. We've got kids who have immigrant parents. Some of them are immigrants themselves. We have students who come from every possible religious background, ethnic background.
I've got so many seniors this year, they'll be the first one graduating high school. You know, and then just the thought of going to college is really out there.
I was born in Houston. My mother was born in El Salvador. She did not graduate high school. I would be the first in my family to graduate high school and go to college.
When we started looking at the data, we realized that we truly had some kids who were lost, who were not in our AP program who should have been. Those gaps were particular to minority students and students in poverty.
I felt like I just didn't belong in AP classes.
So we have x squared plus 2x delta x plus...
I was scared I wasn't going to be prepared for them and how much homework it was going to be.
Too fast and too collegey, but yet these kids had the same test scores as the kids sitting in our current AP classes. And so they showed that they had the intelligence to do so. They had the work ethic. They were making high grades in other classes. We needed to tell them, this is something that's available to you.
When they're encouraged to go ahead and take these classes, it just changes them. It changes their whole outlook, and then it makes them realize, I can go ahead and move on.
Almost all our teachers here always want everyone to be involved in AP classes because they know everyone can do better.
Miss McCain had mentioned me by name that I should be in it, and I thought that was like the coolest thing. I was like, wow, she said me?
She looked at my grades and she saw I had A's in like every academic class, and she was like, what about AP? And I was like, what about AP? I didn't know anything about it.
It made me feel good because I was like, hey, if you believe me like that, I should believe myself.
I truly believe this is how we will change the educational future for these students, is by getting students out of cycles of poverty, out of cycles of parents who weren't educated, grandparents who weren't educated, to make sure these students have the opportunities that all of our other students in AP classes have known all along.
Any questions?
And many of these kids will sit for the AP exam at the end of the year, and if they score 3, 4, or 5, they get college credit for it that will transfer to any university in the country.
I do have one question. I'm sorry, Ms. Vogt. I've been dying to ask this for several months. Did we finally get a result on how many of those kids that took the AP exam in the late in the spring? I know that they weren't supposed to come in until June or July. Did we finally get some scores back for those kids?
We do have our AP scores back. Are you talking about the EOS students?
No, this program in particular, on how those kids fared on the AP exams when they took them.
This coming year will be their first time to take the AP exams.
So those kids who took AP courses last year?
They did take AP exams. I'm sorry, I thought you meant the EOS.
No.
That's another board agenda item coming up. I just shared them with Dr. Randolph.
Oh, okay.
So they'll be out. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. President, the other items on the agenda, tax collection report, payment for construction projects, Region 4, maintenance and operations update.
I've got a quick question on that. Mr. McKeever, when's the last time a board member asked you about anything on this list?
We have before.
It's been a little while, but they have asked.
I was really interested in installing paper towel dispenser in the boys' restroom. I'm not sure in our governance of this district, we need to get quite down this detail, but I'll address that on Thursday evening, maybe recommendation. Question I would have, was this put in here by board vote, or it was voted on?
Now you're making me have to go back and dig up minutes. It's
been here since I've been on the board.
As I recall, it came about with some questions regarding custodial and maintenance and what was going on within the school district, and this was an effort to address that. And it was in response to the board. Now, I cannot remember the motion or anything of that nature.
Well, if it were a board action, I'd take board action to undo it. But if it were just a request for information, we could simply, by consensus, undo it. Correct?
Sure.
All right. We'll address that later. Thank
You
you.
don't want to know about repairing the swings?
The swings? Oh, I missed that. I'm sorry.
Elementary.
How about hanging pictures in the
Low on my
dance?
list.
Bond update 2011, 2014. Transportation update. Projects funded by 2011 available funds. 2016-17 Attendance Boundary Committee. We're getting ready to draw some lines again.
Everybody's happy, right?
Maybe not everybody.
Maybe not everybody.
We're starting the attendance boundary.
And then our medical plan structural changes. Any questions on,
I guess I do have one, are we going to be doing the ABC committee simultaneously and doing the bond? Is that all kind of be going on at the same time?
Well, there'll be a little bit
overlapping.
There'll be a little bit of overlapping due to the fast growth nature of Lamar CISD.
Okay.
But if everything goes according to previous plans, the board should vote on the Lindsay zones in February before the bond committee starts really meeting a couple months later.
So we really need to get going on, do we request?
So the zoning is different, and I know
Yeah.
we've got lots of different committees. So with the zoning committee, those representatives are actually chosen by the campus principal
That's what I was-
from the
okay.
campuses that are
That's fine.
involved with the zoning procedure.
But the school said it would be.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's.
Thank you. We have one item for closed session, so we will adjourn to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 55.1082 of the Open Meetings Act, and the time is 7:31. Session at 7:38, and we will adjourn at 7:38.